Hello and welcome to Crime Watch Daily Updates. I'm your host, Anna Garcia. 24-year-old Karlyn Ramirez might have had top secret clearance at the National Security Agency where she worked, but no matter how much information she knew, nothing could protect her from her own husband. When she was 21 years old, Karlyn enlisted in the U.S. Army and met Staff Sergeant Maliek Kearney. The two fell in love, and she eventually became pregnant with a little girl. Her pregnancy was really something of a miracle because she had had cervical cancer, and she was told she would most likely never have children. She gave birth to her baby girl, and Carlin and her daughter lived in Fort Meade, Maryland. Maliek and Karlyn eventually wed, but he was stationed in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. The distance ultimately drove them apart. On August 25th of 2015, Karlyn was found dead in her home with multiple gunshot wounds, and her little girl was still in her arms. Investigators honed in on Maliek and his girlfriend, Dolores Delgado, as their main suspects. A year later, after the shooting death, a federal grand jury indicted the two for interstate travel to commit domestic violence resulting in murder. They were arrested October 6th of 2016 in San Antonio, Texas. Prior to her death, Karlyn obtained a protective order against Maliek, which prohibited any contact between the two. Federal prosecutors argued that Maliek traveled from South Carolina to Maryland on August 24th of 2015 to kill his wife. They said the Maliek walked into Karlyn's home with his gun and that he shot her multiple times. He even pulled her pants down to make it look like she had been sexually assaulted. And before he left, he put their little girl in her arms. Maliek drove his girlfriend Dolores's car up to Maryland while she stayed behind with his vehicle and cell phone. Dolores even provided him with gas cans, so he didn't even have to stop in gas stations along the way. She also got rid of his clothing and the gun that he used by tossing the items in a waterway in Florida. Dolores pleaded guilty to interstate travel to commit domestic violence, resulting in death, and testified against Maliek at his trial. She was sentenced to 17 years in federal prison with 5 years of supervised release. On August 8th of 2018, a federal jury found Maliek guilty of the same charge, as well as using, carrying, and possessing a firearm during the commission of a crime of violence. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Let's look back at the case of a young mother who defied the odds and rose through the ranks only to be gunned down in her own home.
She had a smile that would light up a room.
A beautiful 24-year-old Army mom placed a disturbing call to loved ones.
You instantly hear her hyperventilating. She's crying. She's, I can't breathe, I can't breathe.
Hours later, Karlyn Ramirez was dead, murdered in her own home.
I can't think of any reason why anyone would want to hurt my sister.
When cops found her, she wasn't alone, but the only living witness can't say who killed her.
People find their soulmates in their lovers. My sister was my soulmate.
Karlyn grew up in the small border town of Del Rio, Texas, a shy girl who would become a warrior.
Growing up, she was really quiet and timid. When she got out of high school, she blossomed. She was a risk taker. She had guts.
Especially the guts to go after what she wanted in life. Like leaving college to join the United States Army.
I tried, I bribed her, I promised her whatever she wanted. Didn't work. That's what she was gonna do.
After enlisting at 21, she was eventually sent to South Korea as a private first class.
She was scared at first. She'd never been that far away from me.
But Karlyn not only adjusted, she thrived and ended up falling in love with Staff Sergeant Maliek Kearney. Then came the most welcome of surprises. She found out she was pregnant. Karlyn, a cervical cancer survivor, was told she would probably never have kids. She proved them wrong.
She was excited. She wanted a baby that's her one thing that she'd wanted so bad.
2 weeks before coming home from Korea, the U.S. National Security Agency offered her a position in Maryland with a top security clearance.
She worked for NSA. That's all I can say. That's all I can know. Top secret, classified. I wasn't even allowed to touch her ID badge.
She couldn't tell me what she did. She would not tell me anything, no matter how much I dug.
Karlyn was happy at her new job, but the day she had her daughter, Vale, was the happiest of her life.
She goes, I love my baby so much. I have never felt love like this.
Eventually, Karlyn and Maliek married, but he was stationed in South Carolina and the couple was often apart. Feeling lonely, Karlyn invited her sister Roxana to stay in her townhouse, located in a safe 600-unit community near Fort Meade, where a lot of military families live. But during a few weeks when Karlyn was away, a strange incident scared Roxana to her core.
I came back from work. I worked till 2 in the morning. The door was open, dog was let out, TV was turned on. She's in Texas and no one else has a key, and I'm like, what just happened? So I grab a knife and I'm like looking around all the rooms. That was like the worst experience I ever had there.
When Roxana told her sister what had happened, Karlyn shared a similar experience, but seemed less bothered.
She said it happened to her as well at some point. And they would just be like, oh, well, maintenance goes in sometimes. And we're like, maintenance can turn on our TV and let out our dog and sit on our couch and leave our door unlocked. They would just shake it off, like, oh, whatever, it happens.
A few months later, Roxana moved back to Texas, and a military friend of Karlyn's moved in.
Her friend Marissa was staying with her, and she had a little girl, and they were best buds.
Life was good.
Then one August night, Karlyn placed some alarming calls to both her sister and her mom.
She said, I don't know what's wrong. I don't feel right. I don't feel safe. You think my baby knows that I love her? I'm like, why are you talking like this? What happened? I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't know.
She told me she was having a panic attack. And I said, well, Karlyn, what's wrong? And she says, it's nothing I can discuss with you. I automatically thought something happened at work.
Karlyn calmed down, and Susan ended the call like she always did.
With I love you, always, always, always. And that was it.
I did not feel comfortable that night when we hung up, and I couldn't sleep. I sent her a text. My phone said she read it, so I really think she did. That was our last conversation. I feel like she knew that something bad was coming.
Something bad was coming. Something unimaginably horrible.
The next morning, I called her and she didn't answer. I called her again and she didn't answer. And then I texted her and she didn't answer.
Around 8 a.m. that morning, maintenance workers saw 2 dogs running loose.
When they went to corral him, the dog ran back into an open door in a townhome. So they went around to the front, they knocked on the door, and got no answer.
They called the police, and when cops arrived, what they found was shocking.
A dead woman.
That she has trauma to the upper body.
Detectives also found a baby in the same townhouse.
Karlyn Ramirez had been shot multiple times and was dead. 5-month-old baby Vale was there, thankfully unharmed.
This mother was murdered in cold blood. Her child left fending for herself.
A helpless child can't even sit up.
Susan was about to get the worst news of her life.
I looked out and there stood 2 uniformed people. So I already knew. We regret to inform you, like you see on television. It's exactly what it was.
Roxana found out her sister had been killed over social media.
My brother messaged me, and at first I thought it was a cruel joke. He's like, Karlyn's been murdered. And then my dad calls me. And that was pretty much how I found out. I'm sorry.
But who wanted this loving mother and soldier dead?
They keep telling me this is an active investigation. There's so many things that we cannot discuss with you.
24-year-old Army Private First Class Karlyn Ramirez was found shot to death in her Maryland townhome. Her precious 5-month-old daughter was there while she was murdered, left unharmed. The search for her killer was on.
I have no idea. No idea who would do this to a 24-year-old mother.
With not much to go on, cops did what they always do, looking at the 2 people closest to Karlyn, which was her roommate and her husband.
I only met him twice, so, I can't say that I knew him. But he was very nice. He was very nice, quiet, didn't say a whole lot.
He was very kind when I met him. The way I describe it, he was perfect for my sister. They were completely opposite, which was great because that's what you need, someone to balance you out.
Maliek and Karlyn had been married only 5 weeks at the time of the murder.
Karlyn and her husband, were they together or were they separated?
They were a newly married couple. There was no separation agreement. However, there was a bit of tension only because he was stationed in South Carolina and she was in Fort Meade.
Although cops considered Karlyn's husband a person of interest, they quickly determined he was in South Carolina at the time, and his alibi checked out. And what about Karlyn's roommate? Cops were soon able to confirm that she was in Washington State with her daughter visiting family. The scene bewildered both investigators and family. And the question if someone related to Karlyn's top secret high security clearance job could have had anything to do with it remained unanswered. Cops were keeping details close to the vest.
They keep telling me this is an active investigation and there's so many things that we cannot discuss with you. But they felt like she may have known who did it because she let them in and that nothing had been stolen from what they could tell. Someone told me that it looked like a professional hit. Someone had to have known Karlyn was there by herself.
Susan believed Karlyn, who was a mixed martial arts fighter, would have defended herself as she could, with one exception.
If she didn't put up a fight, it was to save her child. Because that's probably the only thing that would have stopped her. She would have fought, to her last breath. And I don't know that she didn't.
Cops say there is no obvious motive.
Karlyn, did she have any known enemies?
Karlyn did not. Karlyn was a very well-loved young lady, a new mother, a new wife, and had a very bright career as a soldier. You just can't explain or imagine why someone with such a bright future and who was so loving and caring, something this tragic and just senseless happens to them.
Taking care of Karlyn's daughter, Vale, is what the family is focused on.
Here, your friend? She doesn't have a mom. She has her grandma. To honor my daughter is to raise her daughter the best I can.
They took, not only her life away, but they took my best friend. I'm sorry.
Every day I miss her. I talk to her every day. She was a beautiful soul. She was a beautiful soul. She had a big heart. She had a real big heart, and she didn't deserve what happened to her. And I miss my girl.
When Crime Watch Daily first brought you the story, cops were baffled. The devoted Army mom seemed to have no enemies. Who would want her dead? Now, a dramatic development. This woman, Dolores Delgado, has pleaded guilty to her role in the murder. Delgado is the girlfriend of Karlyn's estranged husband, Army Sergeant Maliek Kearney. Kearney has also been arrested and charged with Karlyn's murder.
If he had anything to do with it, that's his cross to bear.
Court documents say the couple concocted an elaborate scheme to cover their tracks. Kearney allegedly drove 500 miles from his post at a base in South Carolina to Karlyn's home in Maryland. Cops say he shot her 3 times, staged the crime scene to make it look like a sexual assault gone wrong, placed their daughter in the dead woman's arms, and drove back to South Carolina to be at work the next morning. Delgado allegedly established Kearney's alibi, staying at his home with his cell phone and his car. Police say she supplied the gun and large cans of gasoline so Kearney wouldn't have to fuel up along the way.